You're all very welcome to Careers with Classics 2025. My name is Dr. Cadau, and today I would like to welcome you all to Maynooth University campus and remotely on Teams. Today's event is organized by the Ancient Classics Department with the support of the Careers and Employability Service here at Maynooth. We hope that you will find today informative and especially inspiring. We welcome pupils from Wexford CBS, Bremor Educate Together Balbriggan, and Loreto Abbey Secondary School, only to name a few. We're pleased to see that this event has become a yearly appointment with schools to discover the place of classics in the job market, a world that is constantly changing and in which classics answers different needs each time. A degree in classics equips you with the skills that you will need to navigate through your life and future professional career, communication skills, critical thinking, and especially the ability to adapt to change. These are in highest demand in a wide range of careers. Classics graduates are sought after candidates who always stand out in any professional competition. Today's event provides a much sought after and a welcome opportunity to discuss the future of classics graduates and to explore the diverse range of professional contexts to which they contribute. We are proud to welcome to the department 5 classics graduates, some from our own department here at Maynooth, who have found success in a variety of exciting careers. Sarah, Niamh, Leonardo, Ruth, and Sean will guide us through their learning and professional journey through the paths they've taken since leaving classics, from their studies to their current job, to help us understand what classics did for them in their professional and personal life. There will be a Q&A session at the end, but feel free to raise your hand or type your questions in the chat, in the chat section, and we will address them as we go. Thank you. Our first speaker today is Ainan Strain from the Careers and Employability Service, who will talk to us about the importance of classics from a professional point of view, from an employability point of view, and we'll go through the graduate outcome survey, which is a yearly survey of what graduates are doing 9 months after they finish their course. So welcome, Ainan. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. You're very welcome. My name is Ainan. I'm one of the careers advisors here in the university. I'm one of 3 staff, your careers advisors, if you choose to do classics. And I'll just say a quick note about what we do. We help people along with our colleagues in placement and upskill to make the most out of their time while they're here. And some of that emphasizes employability, but a lot of it is personal development and our broader education. To actually complement what Cosetta said, it's about learning and using what you learn here in life later on. That's important. It's not just about the job. We have a number of services here. We run appointments every week. At least 60, but during term we up that massively, so you can come in and speak to us about any of your career planning or personal development needs, whether that's talking about work experience, doing up applications, or going for interviews. We've loads of appointments. We've got huge amounts of information on our website too, actually, and we run talks and sessions and events throughout the year. One of the most important and most interesting things of the job, actually, though, is where I get a chance to help students figure out what they'd like to do, to see their options, to understand the value in what they're doing, to translate what they're seeing here in university in their subject, like classics, to a language that an employer can understand, and to demonstrate their value as they're moving into, for example, postgrad study or a job or beyond. That's a really interesting part of the job. I like that, sincerely. It's challenging, but it's fantastic because I do get a chance to chat to people and help them and watch them make progress from a position of I have no idea what I want to do to see them getting that first job and moving on with their life after, say, a degree in classics or anything at university. I've got a couple of quick slides to maybe help illustrate a little bit further. One thing just to mention is when students attend university, I would really like to emphasize that you don't have to know what you're going to be doing with yourself later on. Most students who come into the careers office don't really know what they want to do. And that's fine. That's perfectly why we're here. That's exactly why we're here. I have students all the time say to me that they're busy, that they find it hard to get the time to focus on the right stuff of all the information that's out there. It's even more difficult now than ever to know which information is valuable and which is just noise. Those form the basis of really, really interesting conversations in our office with people. Some of that can be about, well, which course options might I choose, but it can be even which work experience might I select, or what sort of stuff might I pursue for the CV regarding student clubs and societies or sports or anything like this. Very often people say, I don't know what I'd like to do after my course, or I'm not sure which subject combination to pick, or I don't want to narrow my options too much. And that is a very valid and sensible and reasonable thing to say, very common. So we work with people on that. The majority of the initial work is to start with simple stuff, like what you see on the screen. A very simple exercise when people are looking at taking arts, or any subject for the matter, is initially start to think about themselves first rather than the options that come later. A conversation can happen, for example, that says, well, look at this list and take the top 5 interests that you might have. Can you write those down? Are you able to mention the skills that you use most in your day-to-day life? Write those down. What are the abilities that you feel you have mostly? Write those down. Mention 5 of them. I'll go through this list with them to identify values, what's important to them, in other words, whether they want some purpose in the next couple of years or a job afterwards, what are the main things they're learning from their subject or subjects, whether they have goals, what are they? Write some down, maybe 5 of them. A simple one, but very powerful sometimes, is can you identify 5 characteristics you like in others? Do you have people that you admire in your circles? Write down 5 of those characteristics, because they can be very influential in deciding what sort of work you might do later. And the most interesting, fun one to look at, what sort of lifestyle do you want? And write down 5 of those characteristics that you like. Now, initially, that's a really simple exercise on the surface, but it's quite complicated. Most people, 95% of people, don't have an ability to just regurgitate that information straight away. So it takes a bit of thinking. With arts, with classics, with the study of life and people and behaviour, you can spend 3 years thinking about this stuff to develop quite a detailed list here, and it gets quite deep. The majority of the reason for why you would do this is not just for your education, but for career planning, from my point of view, that if at the end of this you have an ability to survey or audit your interests, your skills, your values, your purpose like this, you can claim, you are in a position to match very effectively to the next thing that you do. That seems right now like a list that you could populate off the top of your head, but really it's tough. Most people I chat to, for example, don't have goals that they can refer to anyway. They're not quite sure what lifestyle they'd like. They're not quite sure where their interests lie. Most people don't have time, just yet. So that's an exercise that a degree or some study in arts can really help. And classics is fantastic for this, because it does give you an option to study a huge range of people over such a long. So it does help you exercise or try and experiment with interests and skills and values. We find that very often there are conversations around people's subjects and what they're studying in the careers office, and it's relevant, especially when somebody says, yeah, I actually like what I'm doing. It's a great way to start a conversation. So if you can, use your instincts to help you with this task. Once done, whether that's today or a week's time or 3 years from now, pick the top 3 or 4 of the most important items you've identified on this list and use them as your primary match to the next thing. We can help with that, so don't think you have to do it by yourself. But it's an interesting process. One thing, do you know that most people, for example, seek work experience at university? That can be a very useful thing for your CV, never mind for your experimentation and for discovering these things. Talk to us early about getting work experience or internships. It's not because you have to, but it can be a very good thing to do. So, another question that comes up very regularly with us is, what are my options? What jobs can I get from my degree, my subject, and versions of that? So, I'll offer some time-saving bullet points for you here today. Most people initially think at the start of this conversation that your technical skill set, your subject knowledge, translates to your next gig, the job that you get later. And that's great if you're in a technical subject that leads you to a technical skill set, grand. But most courses don't do that. So how do you think about this? Can you, for example, go to an employer and ask them to pay you for a 40-hour week knowing information about your studies, your classics? It doesn't quite work like that. Your transferable skills, the methodologies you build up, and your understanding of behavior are three massive sets of information that make you employable. That is incredibly valuable. Here's two bits of information. Did you know, for example, that 30% of graduate employers, 30% of graduate jobs seek graduates of any discipline? That means for you, no matter what subjects you choose, no matter what course you're on, no matter what you graduate with, you have access to 30% of the graduate job market straight away. Think about that, what that means for you. You can pick what's interesting. You can work hard at something, do well, get a good grade, and you still have access to 30% of the graduate jobs straight away. Another very interesting point that people don't know about sometimes is if you wish to do further study, like a master's or a higher diploma or something after your course, you can do that in a subject you have not yet studied. That can be really interesting because it opens up a whole different range of options. 3 years for a degree with classics gives you a huge understanding, very transferable skill set, a new methodology. And if you want, you can spend another year doing something in the same field or in something different, which opens up a huge lot of jobs to you as well. The effect of that usually when I speak to people is that they feel a huge relief in that, oh, I didn't realize there were that many jobs, options, and that I'm not restricted by the word, the title of my degree as a bridge to my next thing. Two last points. Hopefully to echo what Cosette said, maybe the last 1,500 years, 2,000 years is a very long period of time in which to study something. And the scope and the breadth of what you're looking at there is massive. I came from a psychology background. And as a psychologist, you would study a group to observe behavior. But if you studied 1,000 people, I mean, you'd be considered, that is a large set to study, and you can see a lot of behavior in that. Consider, though, if you spread that over 2,000 years, 1,500 years, you're observing a lot of behavior. In classics, it's not just about the facts of the past, it's how people behave, how they think, how they work, how they act, what their values are, how those values drive choices. And that is the basis for every other human interaction that you're going to have. So the learning you get from this is huge, and you can bring that with you into your work. When you understand human behavior, you gain the ability to adapt your own to fit a situation. That adaptability can make you personally successful, but also in the workplace. It means you can effectively function as a team member, inspire as a leader, manage with fairness, guide as a senior leader. It means you can smoothly collaborate with colleagues and customers and navigate relationships with individuals as well as larger groups. You can support one person through a challenge or shape the direction of a whole organization or maybe more. That's very powerful. Just keeping an eye on time, I'm going to move on to something. Where do people go? I have two slides on this, one from LinkedIn and one from a graduate outcomes survey. Here's LinkedIn first. If you put classics and Maynooth University into the search box on LinkedIn and hit search, you'll find some jobs popping up, but you'll also, in the people profile, find a huge amount of job titles from people who have classics and Maynooth University in their profile. Here's a selection on the screen. I just put whatever I thought would fit on the screen. There are more. Look at the breadth of these, ranging from entry-level jobs, probably people who are just out of university, to very senior people. What is the connection between them? What is the mechanism that got them from classics to here? Well, it's probably a complex picture. Their transferable skills got them a job, but their ability to succeed means that they understand people. You don't get to a senior position usually unless you are able to effectively manage and influence and work with people, understand what people need so that you can create a system or a process or something that is of value. Look at the breadth of these industries that they're working in. That's huge. Classics gives you an understanding of people and what people need and what's valuable, with lots of nice and interesting examples along the way. That's circle on the left, investigating, deciding, planning, leading, is a transferable skill set that is going to last you for your career if you have a look at an arts qualification like classics. Getting into the detail of something, finding out what's actually there, just extracting the good from the bad, and then making a decision on that, creating a plan that's fair, that's ethical, that's moral, that has an output of some sort, and then of course leading, getting people to go with you. That's the basis of all mid-management and above jobs, and classics graduates do very well. If you look at long-term CSO data on pay, you'll see that arts graduates, including classics, do really, really well because they have that leadership capacity. Last slide. There's a graduate outcome survey run by my office every year. We survey all graduates. So last year we surveyed, in the summer just passed, sorry, about 3,800 graduates. So the figures are good, pretty standard. There's about 70% straight into work after college, and about 16-17% there go into further study. The average salary, 35,000 give or take. We're just calibrating that literally this week. Some of the arts graduates do really well in the salary band because of that leadership capacity that they have. One quick note on classics particularly, for example. They have 10 responses from the last year. 6 working, 1 in further study, 1 job seeking, and 1 taking time out, which is usually traveling. They're mixed with history, law, philosophy, Spanish for the last year, and those working mostly in Ireland with 2 abroad. Some very interesting locations there, and the average is about 35,000, although some of them are a bit higher as well for their day one out of, or 9 months out of university, which is really nice. The average graduate salary for the whole country last year was 31,500. Current stats being compiled at the minute. That's me for time, Cosetta. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sean Hodgins, a client experience executive at Goodbody, where he leads initiatives to enhance customer journeys, champion the voice of a client, and drive innovation across wealth management services. With a strong foundation in strategic thinking and design-led problem solving, Sean has played a pivotal role in transforming client onboarding processes and shaping future state journey mapping for key personas. A proud alumnus of Maynooth University, Sean holds an MSc in Business Management, an MA in Classical Studies, and a BA in English and Roman and Greek Civilization. He continues to draw upon his educational background in his professional life, particularly in his approach to understanding human behavior, communication, and systems of thought. Sean's career is marked by a commitment to continuous learning, with further qualification in design thinking, project management, and financial advisory. He's also a member of Goodbody Sustainability Task Force and has represented the firm in award-winning innovation challenges, including the Great Tortor Irish Fund Sustainathon. Sean is passionate about sharing his journey from classics to client experience and looks forward to engaging with students on how the skills and perspectives gained through classical studies can be powerfully applied in modern business environments. So, welcome, Sean.
Thanks, Cosetta. Hello. I really hope that I can live up to that bio now. A few quick thoughts just on the presentations that were on ahead of me. And then you've robbed so much of my material already, just in terms of doing what you like in school. Like, that was the reason that I did classical studies and English. I really enjoyed the subjects in school, and I'd say follow your passions. Then just in terms of liking your job, like, that's massively important. Be careful as you're looking out there. And then just also on the graduate jobs open to graduates in all disciplines, the 30%. I know in Goodbody we recruit from all different disciplines, and I spoke to the graduates in 2024, and normally when I speak to them I talk about classics and no one knows what it is. They think I studied Jane Austen in college, and then one of the graduates put up his hand to say that he was actually a classical studies graduate as well. So I'd say we are hiring in this area. So thanks very much for the opportunity to speak. Just a little bit about me. So I was trying to think of how I'd describe myself on a slide, and it probably feels fair that I put loud hurler first because it's a real passion of mine and one that my organisation in Goodbody support me on, and then that I'm a Maynooth graduate, something that I'm really proud of, and feel that Maynooth itself actually allowed me to have the opportunities that I have today, and then that I'm a client experience executive in Goodbody. I didn't make Éanann's list of graduates from Classics and Maynooth, but I'm sure I was there somewhere on the long list. So just to start on County Hurler for Louth, so the two pictures that probably represents who I am outside of work. So hurling for my county and then hurling for AIB, who've recently taken over Goodbody. I'd say like it's just a lesson for everyone who's out there that you can balance your sport as you move on into your professional life. As a Maynooth University graduate, built academic foundation for my career in financial services. Again, echoing what Éanann said, I studied something that I was really interested in. I studied English and classical studies here, and I had no idea about any of the things Éanann is after saying about there were conversion masters, that you could do different subjects afterwards. I did it because I liked it and because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and that's absolutely fine. I think if anyone is watching this video, you're already in a much better place than I was when I was going to start, because you now know some of the options that are available to you. I then did a conversion master's in business after doing a classical studies master's, and ended up in Goodbody, where I was not a client experience executive. I worked in a support team in wealth management, and I was really finding my feet again, just trying to understand what I wanted to do. I was really careful in the organisations that I applied for jobs with, and that's something that I'd recommend. I know that's a long way away for you guys, but I'd say just think about where you want to work and the culture that you want to work in, because that's incredibly important. And then just a little bit more about me. So the reason I'm here today is because I have a massive focus myself in terms of developing talent. I know I was really supported to be in the position that I'm in today. I contribute in the graduate program in Goodbody. I was going to say positively there, contribute, but you'd have to ask the graduates. Hopefully I do. And then I am a creative problem solver, so just really love looking at processes and how we can improve them. And I would say some of those insights and how I solve problems come from my time as a classics student, where I really, if I'm being completely honest, probably learned to listen for the first time in my life at about 18. So then just quickly around Goodbody, just to tell you about the organisation that I work for. There's 3 slides on this, but I'm going to rattle through them. So there's 4 areas of our organisation, just starting on the right side here. So investment banking, capital partners, asset management and wealth management. Like 4 different areas where we look to help people with their wealth. I work specifically within the wealth management area, where we deal more with individual clients, and we deal with everything from someone who's 100,000 worth of wealth to invest to someone who's got 20 or 30 million plus. And then this slide, although it's scary, this is all the things that we do in wealth management. And I'd say if anyone else in Goodbody was to create this slide, they wouldn't put client experience at the center of it, but I did, because that's what's most important to me. I'm not going to take you through it line by line, but these are all the different areas that we focus on in Goodbody. And then this is what I do, and I think it's just really important for people to understand that as a classics graduate you can go into areas like this, and I deliver on the client survey in Goodbody. So really I just listen to our clients. I tell the people internally, what our clients are feeling, and we create action around how our clients feel to deliver positively for the client experience. Like a snapshot is down there on the bottom. I don't have the same numbers of respondents that Ainon has. Maybe it's a little bit more difficult to get wealth management clients to respond to surveys than there's graduates, but I'd say it probably calls out the incredible job that Ainon and the team are doing. We had 278 respondents, and we track something called NPS, which is a Net Promoter Score, and it ranges from 0 to 10, and you only get to include 9 and 10s as your promoters, and anyone from 0 to 6 is a detractor. So it's a little bit difficult to get a high score on that, and I'd say it's really positive that Goodbody are doing well there. So really, I'm just going to leave this slide up here on the screen and talk to 2 or 3 more things that I think might be of interest. I was trying to think what might be of interest to people in your positions. So I think the first one is that like you can go into any discipline. I'd recommend classics because it's what brought me forward. But I'd say you can go into any discipline and move forward from there. So I'd say that's really important insight. Like just a quick one around what employers look for, or like, because I know you can be thinking that way when you are going towards college, and it's like, do I select something for an employer or for an opportunity? You know, Ainon probably said that you can go with what you like, and that's what I'm saying as well. But really, when I'm looking at graduate profiles now, and when I'm looking at CVs coming through for any position, I'm looking for someone that has the ability to learn. So like, once you can show that through your CV, the ability to communicate, and then most importantly, and one that I said I really learned in classics, is the ability to listen. And I say if you have those 3 things, you're fairly well looked after. On classics, I'd say I don't engage enough with the material anymore. I read my daily Stoic every day from Ryan Holiday, but that's about it. But reading is really important. So I'd say classics definitely gives you a grounding in that, and I've taken that forward. Although the book that I read most recently is a fiction book, God of the Woods by Liz Moore, which I'd recommend if anyone's interested. But I'd say it does kind of open your mind to all the opportunities that are there in terms of the written word and literature and everything you can do by just continuously educating yourself. And everything you read doesn't have to be a masterpiece. Like, you can just enjoy reading and enjoy your hobbies. So I'd say that's kind of an overview about who I am, what I do. Welcome any questions if you want to ask me now or at the end.
Maybe at the end. Yeah.
At the end? Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Sean. Ruth is a collections and content librarian at Maynooth University Library. She holds a PhD in Classics, award in 2013, following her undergraduate and postgraduate studies in Greek and Roman civilization at Maynooth University. Ruth oversees the development, management, and accessibility of library collections, and her work supports both research and teaching across university disciplines. So Ruth, as I said, couldn't be here today, but she has recorded a video that she wanted to share with all of us here today. And
hi, everyone. It's really great to talk to you today, and I'm sorry I can't be there with you this afternoon, but I'm delighted to have the chance to talk to you a little bit about my background in Greek and Roman civilization and how that influenced the path that I've taken in my career to date. So just to introduce myself, my name is Ruth and I'm a librarian here in the university, and I'm also a classics graduate, so I've been part of the university in more ways than one. I first studied Greek and Roman civilization as part of my undergraduate degree, and I found it so interesting that I just kept going. So eventually I completed a PhD in Roman history, so the department really couldn't get rid of me for quite a long time. Today, though, I just want to talk to you about how I ended up studying classics in the first place, and how that experience has shaped and supported my career journey up to now. So I think the first thing to admit is that I had no clue what I wanted to study when I arrived in Maynooth. I knew I liked history, I did well in it in my leaving cert, so I thought, right, that'll be my first subject. What's really great in the first few weeks when you come to college is that each department will give you introductory lectures. So I went along to the Greek and Roman civilization talk, and I was just really taken with what they offered. There was just a really wide variety in the course. There was history and literature covered, and really importantly at that point, there was the promise of wine and cheese and lots of social events as well. So that kind of sealed the deal for me. when I came to do this presentation for you and kind of looking back over my time in Greek and Roman, it probably seems like an inevitable choice given my interest in history, but really at the time it was just the enthusiasm of the lecturers in those first few talks, the variety of the course, and the offer of wine that won me over. So eventually I decided my undergraduate degree was going to be history, modern history, Greek and Roman civilization, and then I also studied sociology in my first year here. Unsurprisingly, given I'm here speaking to you at the moment, I found myself becoming more and more interested in studying the ancient world. And there was lots of different reasons why I really liked Greek and Roman civilization. The first thing was the breadth of the course. One of the things that kept it fresh and exciting was just the sheer variety that was in it. We got to work with ancient sources and translation. We read poetry and novels that were thousands of years old, and then we could dive into the scheming lives of imperial families. We looked at what people would do to get hold of power and how they kept that power. And while I was studying it, it felt very familiar to what was going on in the modern world. And I think, unfortunately, that's even more the case today. Greek and Roman also fit in really well with my other subjects, obviously history. And in first year, that just made life an awful lot easier. So there was just less stress, that things worked well together. And then really importantly, there was such a supportive department. The thing that always set this department apart from others was just how approachable the lecturers were. And that could be quite intimidating when you're in first year in college. They were always willing to chat, and there was really a good sense of openness and collegiality, and that definitely influenced the direction both of my academic career and also what I do now as a librarian. But I'll come to that in a few minutes. And then really importantly, there was the social side of things. So another part of my time studying Greek and Roman was just the social events that the department put on. There was visiting lecturers from all around the world, and after they gave their papers, you also got a chance to talk to them, which was great. And the department, I remember, even staged some plays that we were studying. I don't know if that happens anymore, but if it doesn't, it should do, because it was really great fun. There was wine, a lot of wine, I remember too. I'll just mention that again. And the friends I made in those first few years here at Maynooth are still some of my best friends today. So it's a real testament to the department that they created that atmosphere, and it's something that I won't forget when thinking about studying classics. So how did I get to where I am today? I got so much out of studying Greek and Roman civilization, I decided to stick around a little bit longer. So first off, I did a 2-year thought master's, and then I stayed on for a PhD. As part of my PhD, I focused on an official Roman document that's called the Notitia Dignitatum, and I have a lovely page of it there on the screen if you can see it. And I also studied 3 years of Latin as well as part of my master's, and then the first year of my PhD. Although I would really like to talk an awful lot about my PhD studies, I am not going to do that to you today, so don't worry. But just in simple terms, what it looks on paper, this document called the Notitia Dignitatum, it looks like a dry list of government officials and military posts from the later Roman Empire. So you're talking around the 4th and 5th centuries CE. But what it does, it really gives us an incredible window into the decline of empire during that time. By then, the empire had split into the east and to the west. And the document that I studied for my PhD, in it you can really see the changing fortunes of both sides in that text. So really stay on and study, when you come to Maynooth, study Greek and Roman civilization, because you get to look at things like that. What I didn't realise when I was working through all of the document was that I was also preparing myself to be an expert on television shows like Game of Thrones, because part of my thesis looked at things like the power of eunuchs and women and these powers behind the throne. So that had a very familiar ring when the television series came along. I suppose that's one thing I really love about classics, is that it's never boring. It always seems to connect back to the world around us in surprising ways, and it's just, you get used to expecting the unexpected when you're studying it. So A big part of my PhD involved interrogating sources, checking facts, bringing this information together to form my thesis. But I got to do other great things while I was studying as well. I got to tutor undergraduate classes, which was really good fun, having been in the same position as those students only a few years earlier. That kind of opportunity was really important as well for my work in the library, because it gave me a good insight in what students needed to access and how they came about understanding the information that they were studying as well. So that was really good training. I also got to do things like speak at conferences. I wrote articles based on my research, and then I talked to researchers and academics here in Maynooth in all different departments. And also internationally, I shared my work and they shared their work, and I learned from people's ideas. So I got quite comfortable talking to academics and people in other departments, which really stood to me in my career now as an academic librarian. Not surprisingly, perhaps, that the library became my home from home. So over the next few years, I soon learned that all the skills that I was using to do my research also transferred really well into working in the library. So when the opportunity came to apply for a job at the university library information desk, where we issued books and answered student questions, I jumped at the chance. I knew how the library worked. I knew where to find information, how to reference books. My tutoring enabled me to be comfortable with student requests about essays and bibliographies. And I was also able to work my hours in the library around my studies as well. So it really was a great job to get at that time. From the information desk then, I moved on to working with Maynooth Special Collections. So these are books that dated from before the 1800s. And thanks to my classics background, I was really comfortable working with manuscripts and old printed books, looking for information to put into cataloguing records that would help these texts to be searchable for researchers. So again, making information available and usable by students. I also got to give tours of the Russell Library, which is where these older books are held in Maynooth. And I had the confidence to do this thanks to my experience tutoring and talking at conferences as well. And much to my surprise and delight, I was able to use my Latin as well outside of my research, and you don't often get to say that, but many of the books and manuscripts here are in Latin, so that was really great skill to have. So you can see, I hope, that I was able to connect my studies with my practical library work. So by the time my PhD was completed, I'd been working in the library for a good few years, and I knew at that point that I wanted to go on and have a career in librarianship. I'd also seen how transferable the skills that I'd learned during my career in classics were, and I knew there were lots more opportunities to make use of them in the library. So I went on to do a master's degree in library and information studies, and this was all pre-COVID, but the course I did was in a university in Scotland, and it allowed you to do your studies remotely. And I absolutely know that without the experience I had in studying classics, the training I got writing essays, interrogating sources, bringing together my ideas and presenting them, I know that without these, my master's studies would have been a lot more difficult. With my professional librarianship degree, together with my PhD then, I had lots of opportunities to pursue a career in librarianship. And I'm really lucky I got the job that I wanted, which I'm doing now, and that's as a collections and content librarian here in Maynooth. So as part of this job, I oversee the development of the library's diverse collection of print items. The analytical and interpretive skills I honed during my classical studies are central to my daily work, as I have there on the slide. So what I do basically is I curate resources, so I evaluate and select resources for our collections. I interpret our usage data and trends, how much people are using books, how much books aren't being used, and that helps us develop our collections and also move on books that haven't been used in a while. And then I facilitate access, and I ensure our sources are properly catalogued and easily accessible to all our students and researchers. My role though is really varied, and I think my interest in doing a job that has lots of different strands to it goes back to the variety of my studies in classics. So my job involves working closely with Maynooth academics and researchers in the area of open access publishing. I basically make sure that researchers get their work to the widest audience possible without it costing them lots of money. I get to work with academics and library colleagues from all different departments and institutions, and I get to speak at conferences and workshops about what I do. And I'm comfortable doing this because of the experience I got while studying classics. One of the most meaningful and rewarding aspects of my job involves working with our Troubles collections, which document the recent past in Northern Ireland. This role uniquely leverages the skills that I cultivated during my classics studies. So again, I work with a wide variety of sources, much like piecing together ancient narratives. I organise and catalogue information to ensure, again, that's accessible for people to use. And then I presented research on not only what's in the collection, but also how I brought that collection together and how we're interpreting the data from it. So it's such a different area of research than I'm used to through my studies in classics, but I brought the skills that I learned in classics to interpret the data I'm working with. So I learned lots of great skills from my studies in classics that have shaped my career to date. And I think it's only by doing talks like this that you get to realise how much you did learn and how much you can transfer those skills to a career outside of classics as well. And I've just put a few of these on the slide here, but I'm sure there's many more. So things like critical thinking, interpreting data and information, and forming coherent narratives, research rigor, attention to detail, methodical approach. And I got this both from my wider studies, but also studying languages as well, which is a great opportunity. Interpreting data, understanding and making sense of a wide variety of data. And then just interdisciplinary collaboration, working with academics and researchers and other students from lots of different departments in Maynooth and outside it as well. And this has really stood to me in my career to date. And I'll mention again, I ate a lot of cheese, I drank a lot of wine, and I made loads of really great friends, thanks to my studies in classics. So just to finish off, I'll say that classics didn't just teach me about the past, it equipped me for the future. I feel that's a bit like a live, laugh, love statement, but it's actually true. It really gave me a good foundation that's extended far beyond a career in academia. It gave me the skills to get the job I really wanted here in librarianship, and I think I'm really lucky to have studied it. So best of luck in all your career choices. And again, I'm sorry I can't be with you today, but if you have any questions, I'm sure the department can send them on to me. Thanks a lot.
Niamh Fitzgerald is the events manager in the Development and Alumni Office at Maynooth University. She oversees the planning and delivery of a wide range of events, both on campus and internationally, designed to elevate the university's profile locally and globally. She brings a diverse background in both the higher education and private sectors, with experience spanning senior administrative roles, strategic project management, and publishing. Niamh holds a BA in English and Philosophy from Maynooth University, an MA in Literature and Publishing from University of Galway, and a Diploma in Public Relations and Event Management from the Public Relations Institute of Ireland. Niamh has a strong personal interest in community volunteering and in her spare time enjoys reading. So thank you, Niamh.
Hi, everyone. My name is Niamh Fitzgerald. I'm the events manager at the Alumni Office for Maynooth University. Is that okay? Is that okay? Lovely to speak to you today. I was really excited to talk and as similar speakers have said, really reflect on what I learned during my time in Maynooth University and classics in particular. So I was at the weekend digging through lots of old photos in my mum's attic. So it was a very nice time to reflect on kind of my journey to date. So what I'll do is I'll just kick off with an introduction about me. And this is one of those very badly scanned photos that I took when I was in Florence, which kind of just shows you kind of the passion that you get for travel, for learning about new cultures. But it's a very old photo and scanned, so apologies for the pixels there. So just a little bit about me. I am from a place called Ballantyre in South Dublin. I am the youngest. I'm the baby. I'm the youngest of 4 girls. My mum and dad were from inner city Dublin. So my dad was from the Liberties and my mum was from Crumlin. And myself and my sister were the first generation to go to university. So it was really exciting. My family, like my dad especially, was very proud of us to go to university. But dad was the one that gave us a real passion for travel. He was a sailor. It worked on the Merchant Navy and worked on ships and travels around the world. So he would tell us amazing stories about being on a beach in South Africa, and has these stones which are still in our house at home, like gemstones that he picked off a beach and like smuggled back on a ship. He told us about stories that he got his first motorbike and he traveled through Europe and had no money and slept under bridges in Paris. So he was really inspiring, and he was very well read. He attempted to read Ulysses at the age of 14, and then was very proud when I got to college and studied English and classics and gave him the cheat notes of what Ulysses was about. So we had great conversations around literature and travel, and that's where kind of my passion and interest kind of developed. I was really interested in Egyptian history, and then when I came to Maynooth, kind of learned more about classics in those first few weeks. So just to say, and kind of this echoes other speakers today, of I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. The first thing I wanted to be was a lifeguard, because Baywatch was a big TV show when I was a kid. Else I wanted to be, a detective, because I loved solving puzzles. I wanted to be a teacher, a writer. So I didn't know what I wanted to be. And that's just kind of to say your path will be very varied. It's not going to be a straight line. But every path that you walk down will build the person that you are, will give you the great experience that you will have. So even if you make a decision and it ends up on reflection being a bad decision, you will learn something from what you work at, or a job that you may not like. You'll figure out what is also very valuable is what you don't want to do and what you don't want to be. So that's important. Here's another horrifically bad photo of me throwing my coin into the Trevi Fountain in Rome. And it's very, very true, obviously, that when you throw a coin into the Trevi Fountain that you go back to Rome, because I'm actually going back on Saturday for my honeymoon. So it's all very exciting. So you will bring passion, for people and places when you study classics. So just to kind of talk you through my academic background, I came to Maynooth, I studied English literature and classics and philosophy. My dad wanted me to be an accountant or a lawyer, and clearly I did not listen to him. So I just said, but Dad, I love English. I want to write. I want to learn more about kind of stories and books, and that was my interest. As I said, I wanted to be a teacher. Still at the end of 3 years, and like Enan said, you can study something. So pick something that you love and pick something that interests you. At the end of the 3 years or 4 years, you may still not know what you want to be. I thought I might like to teach, but my Irish is horrific. So I was like, that might be out of the question for me. So I went on to study, as I said, I love books and reading. I went on to study English literature and publishing in University of Galway. That was an amazing experience. It was a very small group. There was only like maybe 15 or 16 of us. What they said was, when we started our course, what they said was, in Ireland, the publishing kind of industry is very, very small. And from the 16 of us, they said, the only way you will get a job in publishing in Ireland is if someone dies or go on maternity leave. So that was great to learn on the first week of our lectures. Now, Listen, it was wonderful. It was a great experience. I loved publishing, and I actually ended up getting a job. No one had to die, but I ended up getting a job in publishing. So this is my journey. This is my work journey. Here's my career path. Okay. As I said, I started off. I really like leaned into my kind of passion for reading and books and literature. I got a job as a publishing assistant in Poolbeg Press, which is a fiction and non-fiction publishing house in Ireland. I was there for 4 years. And while I was there, I was, again, just always learning about what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. And I liked communicating. I liked interacting with people. I also, from reading and classics and writing papers for college, I liked writing. So I liked writing press releases, dealing with the media. So that's where I ended up doing a diploma while I was working in public relations and event management. And that's really important to think, right? If you pick something for your undergrad and you go on to do things, learning is a lifelong thing. So you can always do small courses, micro credentials, continue like learning is a lifelong passion. And so do keep on learning. And I didn't travel. I didn't do any J1s. I didn't travel when I was in college. And it's something from that kind of passion that my dad instilled in all of us. I really missed out on traveling. So I decided after the 4 years, there wasn't much place to go in the publishing industry in Ireland. I took time out and I went to Canada. I worked as a marketing and event executive there, working on conferences, like building sets, engaging with people at kind of different trade conferences. But also I had two jobs. I was double jobbing. I also worked in a bookshop. So that was actually probably my favorite job of all time. So it was great. It was, again, interacting with literature and talking to people about like reading as a passion. I came back from Canada after the year and I became a bid manager, which I'm glad to say was on the list of NN's list. So I became, and again, and I'll talk again about the skills that I learned while I studied classics and arts more broadly, and how I came to kind of use my skills in these roles. And I was a bid manager, and what that is I work with documents at the time, and I worked there for 8 years. And I worked for a catering company, two different companies. But what I would do is project manage, and so planning, working to deadlines, that sort of kind of area that you learn when you kind of are working on papers. You're working to tight deadlines and pressurized deadlines, that you might have multiple papers that you need to, or projects in college that you need to submit. So they're all skills that you're honing when you're studying. But I also had the strength of working with texts and documents and kind of the power of the word, I suppose. I was in an interview once and someone kind of said, looking at this kind of movement from publishing, marketing, sales, higher education, they were like, it's quite varied. Like, can you talk us through that? And when I looked at that, I was thinking, yes, it's very varied, but it all is connected by the words. So it's all connected by language, and the able to communicate and be a translator, which is what I did for bid management. I would read lots of documentation, 200-300 page documents. And what you would have to do is find key information, distill it down, and I would write documents, again, to 100-200 page documents, to put in a tender document, and basically it's for a contract. So we bid on things like Croke Park or the Aviva, where you want to go there, you want to get a drink and a burger, and there's a company there. It's another company so we had those contracts. So that's the type of stuff that I would work on. But it was leaning into my publishing background, leaning into reading, distilling down information, finding out, like very much like the Leaving Cert, answer the question that's asked. So learning those skills of kind of paying attention and being focused on detail, and that all kind of threads through my experience in my kind of my journey in my career to date. I worked in sales for 8 years as a bid manager, and then I moved to higher education, because it was, the hours were crazy in bid management. It's very last minute deadlines. So I ended up moving to higher education. I worked in DCU for 4 years as a strategic projects manager in the Deputy President's office, and I'm now an event manager at Maynooth University. I'm here 3 years, and I work, again, it's planning, it's communicating, and all those types of skill sets. So just to kind of talk again, to kind of highlight, so in my career, what I kind of studying classics, what has that taught me? So it teaches me respect for the past, people and place. I live in Maynooth, and I'm always curious about what was here before. So, oh, that's a coffee shop now. What did it used to be? It's a lovely red brick building. What was it before? So studying classics teaches you respect for the past, the history, like people's stories. So you might come into a new workplace, there are processes in place, there are people there. What's the history behind that? So it's, again, leading into asking questions. It always teaches you to ask questions. Why is that here? Why is it like this? Can it be better? Is there another way? And being an arts graduate, you think a little bit differently. You do think outside the box. So you can be that kind of problem solver that Sean was talking about, you know, that kind of creative problem solver. And it teaches you awareness of diversity. There's different cultures, people have different backgrounds, and it teaches you empathy. And in my job at the moment, it helps me engage with stakeholders and like customer service elements of my role that are always of a very high standard. And it teaches you analytical thinking. You have a lots of reading when you're studying classics and English. And so you study lots of beautiful texts. You learn to kind of distill it down and then translate that, kind of could be very dense and complex text. You are a translator then, to, you know, to simplify it in your paper that you're writing. Teaches you attention to detail, communication skills, project management that I really lean into in my last few roles, and problem solving. So this is my advice. Look at me there in Venice. Fabulous. Hopefully go back there. Venice, highly recommend. It's an amazing, amazing city. So the career of the future. Okay, at the moment, there's like lots of job reports. It's interesting to think now where everyone will be in 5 years' time. Jobs are evolving always, especially now in the current climate where like AI is a big influencer at the moment, and technology like cybersecurity. But having read some of the reports around this, as a classics student and a graduate, as an arts graduate, the most sought after skill, and Sean talked about this, is what organizations are looking for is analytical thinking, critical thinking, being able to question things, and being able to be a translator, to present things in a concise manner. It teaches you resilience, managing your time. If you work on group projects, which you will when you come to college, it teaches you leadership skills, social influence, like collaboration. So these are all transferable skills that, like, as you saw from my career path, it's very varied, but all of those skills I was able to take and apply to the job that I'm in, you know, at any given time. And what I'd recommend is just hone in on your uniqueness. For me, I loved management. I love an L list. So I love project management. I love documents. I love the written word. But I'm also a good communicator and a translator. So what I found working with salespeople and working with, let's say, financial people, they really struggled to translate the data into a story. But I loved stories, so I could understand. I was focused, and I loved documents and data. But I could understand that to translate that into a story, and that was my unique kind of strength that I've kind of probably cultivated over the last few years. And for me, at the moment in my career in event management, what I would say is when you're at college, take opportunities to work and volunteer while you're here. There's lots of departments around the university and lots of units that are looking for student helpers. I work in events. I have a bank of students that work with me, and they're amazing. They get lots of experience. So do take opportunities while you're here and while you're studying, and then also engage with the various supports that are here at any university, but especially at Maynooth, where there's our Student Skills for Success team and Enan and the Careers team, but there's also clubs and societies. You'll learn a lot outside of a lecture hall than you will as well in the lecture theatre. And that's it. That's me. Thank you very much.
Okay, our next speaker is Leonardo Biagini. Leonardo is a writer, professional kickboxer, and music lover living in Dublin. He was born in Florence, Italy in 1994, so we go back to Florence. He attended the Linguistic Classical School and then graduated in political science, specializing in political philosophy in 2017 in Florence. During this period, he had several working experiences abroad. In May 2021, he took a master's degree in international relations, specializing in history of the modern Middle East at the University of Florence, then a bachelor and master's in philosophy. He worked with an intermediary organization of the European Union for 2 years, managing the project Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs. Following his interests, he published 3 books with Papyrus edition of Pistoia, a city in Italy. He also won several national and international poetry prizes. For many years, Leonardo has also been a professional kickboxer and is a certified trainer of the World Association of Kickboxing organization. Between 2015 and 2021, he won many important tournaments and became the Italian champion of second division in 2018. He cultivated an interest for classical music and opera. Johann Sebastian Bach, his grandpa's favorite, stands at the center of Leonardo's early musical investigations, as well as of the music metaphysics concepts as the core of his books. Okay, off you go, Leonardo, yes.
Okay, perfect. First of all, welcome everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you today to talk inside this amazing initiative led by the Department of Ancient Classic about my classical studies in general, and about what I'm doing in life in relation to what I studied. I would therefore thank Cosetta and the Department of Ancient Classic at Maynooth University for this opportunity. I was unfortunately unable to, as you see, to attend the event in person due to circumstances beyond my control. So we have to meet through the camera. I will explain my journey through the PowerPoint that you can see and that I prepared. So first of all, the first image shows my 3 main interests that became real jobs. So kickboxing, as you see, the National Library of Ireland, where I'm working, and the passion of DJing and music producer that became sort of a job. I still remember attending meetings like this as a teenager, when I had to choose which university or high school program to pursue, and the students or teacher who were supposed to explain and encourage us to embrace a certain career did anything but that, boring us to that. Fortunately, today you're attending an event very different from the ones I've attended in my past. In fact, my colleagues were very thorough and engaging. And I'm not saying that because my wife, Sarah, is among the presenters. She will be the next one to speak. So hello, Sarah. I would have loved to show you so many things, but unfortunately, we only have 15 minutes, as you know, which isn't too much for someone who usually talks a lot. At least I won't bore you. As you may have guessed, and as I said you, I've studied Classic 2 in the linguistic school. That was my high school in Italy. Although my career and life had encompassed numerous fields that may seem paradoxically different at first glance, but which I have managed to bring together, firmly convinced that all the things that are happening in everyone's life and those we encounter along our way are not accidental. I also studied classic at my university in a certain way under philosophy at the University of Florence and the Linguistic High School in Italy, where I've studied Latin and Latin literature for 5 years in the high school and 2 years in the university. Although the society we lived seems to push us to pursue kind of consumeristic careers, I can define it in this way, aimed at profit and materialism in a certain way. My choice to study classics is perhaps one of the best choices that I've made in my life. Since all the paths and all the different careers I've undertaken so far are due to the freshness and the mental flexibility that studying classic has given me. So this approach to study has led me to develop within myself the encounter and discover that deeper part of myself that only studying classic has made me aware of, especially in a philosophical field or in a philosophical way. As I've previously told you, I am currently employed by the NLI, the National Library of Ireland in Kilda Street in Dublin, as a clerical officer of the Estates Department. But I'm primarily a writer, poet, and essayist. I've published numerous books since I worked for the University of Florence, until my last book that was translated into English in collaboration with the NLI, the National Library, entitled The Milky Way of the Heart, that is a collection of poems, but with a classical view on the metaphysical philosophy and philosophy in general. But I was also a professional K1 kickboxer athlete, spending 10 years on the Italian national team. And as I told you, I'd show you almost paradoxical passions that later became real job and reasons for living. And that was thanks to the freshness that the classical studies gave to me. So if someone can change the slide on the next one, that shows you, the National Library of Ireland. I'm organizing conferences and congresses as well. And the next one that shows the kickboxing, the books that I publish. So you have an essay on the left and two collections of poems. One is based on Jean-Jacques Rousseau and the other one on the Apocryph Gospels in the territory of Israel and Palestine. And that's the last one, the Milky Way of the Heart. Then the following slide that I've prepared shows my kickboxing passion that became a real job for 15 years, and I'm still doing that. And the next one that I prepared shows you a small video. It's less than 1 minute, I think. Yeah. I'm going to mute my micro because there's a bit of music on the background. So if you want to show the videos, yeah, go ahead. Okay, sure. Hope you had a bit of fun. Just not to bore you too much. And at last but not the least, I'm also an electronic music producer and ambient music producer and DJ as well. I've also prepared a slide with a recent track that we've released called In Search of the Light, created with my colleague Lorenzo Bianco and released on a studio in Dublin. So next slide with the music, please. Thank you. okay, just for a bit of fun. Honestly, I've been able to pursue these three cornerstones of my life, so writing, professional sports, and music, thanks in part to what my classical studies career has taught me. Basically, appearance aren't just what actually exists, but that there is an unconscious internal world that is waiting to be discovered and explored, so we can savor its essence, to quote the famous movie The Dead Poets Society, before it will be too late. So my studies in classical philosophies at the university, both my master's and bachelor degrees, further emphasize the beneficial impact of classical studies and classical philosophy on my own life. Furthermore, the encounter with the work of Greek philosophers like Plato or Parmenides, for example, helped me to develop some concepts that then I've used in my writings and poetry. Referring to that, I would like to show you as last a slide with one of my poems that is referred to my philosophical interests, that was published in my last books, that is called Invocation to a Mother. We always say that the writer should never read what he wrote, but I'll make an exception for today, because I'm the only one who can read it. So, Invocation to a Mother. O quiet mother, who filled my chest with sweet truth, tell me, man, what that of that love which in your womb brought to life, so I can make of the word infinite thing. And that's referred to my philosophical knowledges and philosophical studies and classical studies in general that embrace the Greek philosophy and Latin philosophy as well. This is the end. I hope, therefore, that on this occasion I've been able to shed some light on what is other and different from what the superstructure of the society are instilling, especially in what concern the cultural path and the path of studying that people have to embrace. So thank you all. I hope
Sarah is our last speaker. Sarah Coviello is assistant curator at Roseborough House, County Wicklow, where she helps looking after and making accessible one of Ireland's most beautifully preserved 18th century neoclassical architectures and interiors. Its grand art collections of European art, the Milltowns and the Bites, partially donated to the Irish National Gallery in multiple instances over the course of the 20th century, can still be enjoyed on site and comprise many objects in the after the antique taste. Prior to specializing at university as an art historian and museum professional with a specific focus on the history of collecting and taste, Sarah studied classics and modern languages at secondary school, enjoying studying Latin and classical literature for 5 years. Albeit not immediately evident to its common perception, classics bears a strong link with art history, making the knowledge of both classical culture and the remains of its material culture, especially art and architecture, an indispensable tool to either interpret iconologies and stories of the past, to understand terminology and period movements. Sarah was very lucky to experience the Warburg Institute in London and its fame in the study of classical antiquity and its survival in history during her PhD. And she is confronted every day with the meaning and legacy of classics through the eyes of the 18th century for a museum's modern public.
Thank you very much, Cosetta, for the invite, and to the Department of Classics. I hope, being the last one, I won't do like Leonardo just said and bore you to death. Probably you're all very hungry, and that's usually the case when you're the last speaker before lunch. So I'll try and be brief. I actually didn't realize how much my bio that Cosetta just read overlaps with my presentation, but it was a nice teaser, so to say. So just to say a few words again about myself, I am from a small city in the region of Venice. So Niamh will be delighted to know that we actually you actually made both me and Leo from the Florence and the Venice side very happy. I studied classics at high school, so I was very lucky to be already confronted at your stage, basically, with the culture and language of the classical tradition. And I remember how exciting it was when I first learned to do Latin translations, how really it was very, very encouraging to be able to just unlock the meaning of a sentence that just seemed absolutely meaning nothing, and then just being able to disassemble all the little parts that compose that sentence and being able to then translate it into something meaningful. I was perhaps a bit special compared to what other speakers have said today, as in I always knew what I wanted to do in life. And that's actually due to my encounter with the classic tradition through art. So I remember when I first attended an art history class at high school, and of course you would start from the Greeks and the Romans, and I just thought, wow, this is really beautiful. I really want to know everything about it. And so that's how I then ended up studying further on the subject in university. And but I also wanted not to just become an art historian. I really wanted to work with the objects. So that's why I chose also to pursue the career into the museum path. And that's really what I've always tried to do throughout my life. And that eventually brought me to studying at the Warburg Institute in London, which is a higher education institute. It's mainly a research institute, which was funded by a visionary man of the early 20th century from Hamburg, Germany, named Abi Warburg. And he's here looking at Florence from his flat. And what was special about this place, as you can see from these images here, is the relationship with classics. So here on the bottom side, that's the word mnemosyne in Greek that was written outside of the entrance to the institute. And here on the left, it's a frieze, so a representation in sculpture of the muses. And here you have the symbol of the institute, which is a translation of the structure of its library, which is what the institute is most famous for. So Abi Warburg really thought that in life, through studying the past, you could have the key to survive really through all the most difficult times. And you would first start by looking visually at things with the images. So the first floor of a 4 floors library was all dedicated to images and art history. Then through art, you will get access to the world of literature and stories. So on the second floor, you would find just books devoted to literature. And then through literature, you would get acquainted with philosophy, so critical thinking. And then eventually you would have access to the last floor, which he used to call the floor of action, where you would study history and science. So that's really just to give you a glimpse of how important classics was for this man who then opened this institute. And they are continuing to study really classics as an idea of a storage of cultural memory where different modes of representation engage with antiquity and survive. And it was really eye-opening for me, and it was really something that I keep returning to when I try and interrogate myself with the questions that Cosetta showed us at Sign, like what is classics? Why should we study classics now? And that really led me to then what I do in my normal day, and that I really deal with the reception of classics and classical antiquity, which is one of the strands of the classics program here at Maynooth. And I just included a few pictures, which is just to show you how the reception of classical and antiquity is still something relevant in the current day. So on the left is just a very popular image of Michelangelo's David chewing a bubble gum. and that you can find these in many tote bags and t-shirts if you go in Florence, or even just in normal clothing shops. And on the right, it's a graffiti artist who does all these artworks in Florence, again, playing and engaging with the legacy of the classical. So I currently work in Rossborough House. I'm assistant curator there. And Rossborough, you can see a picture here, it's in County Wicklow. It's been built in the 1740s. And as you can see from the architecture, it's really a statement of engaging with classical art and architecture and the culture, really. So the man here dressed up in his fur is Joseph Leeson, and he was the first Earl of Milltown. And really, what does it mean to work in a place like this is to engage with the 18th century interest for classical antiquity and the age of the Grand Tour, which we could possibly think about as a prehistorical classic, well, degree in classics, really. Because if you were living in the 18th century, being either part of the upper class, or if you were an artist or indeed a scholar, you would hope to go for a good few months, if not years, to tour around Europe and especially visit Rome or Florence and Venice, and really discover and study and touch the remains of the classic past. And this here on the right is just a caricature that was made for the Leesons. It's in the National Gallery of Ireland. I'll just invite you, if you have the chance to go there, to go and watch it. It's very playful. And it's a parody of Raphael's School of Athens, where every single character personifies a philosopher or a thinker or an artist in the Greeks' time. And here at the center is Joseph Leeson, so the owner and the patron of Rossborough, as a Plato, and he is then here in company of this gentleman here, which would embody Aristotle. And everything in this picture could tell you the whole story of classical culture and thought. But that's something that perhaps if you do study classics, you will engage much more into in the future. So I just thought maybe it would be interesting for you to see what does a curator do on a normal day, and what does classics have to do in all of this. So this is a picture of the colonnade in Rossborough, and you see here a series of statues in the niches. So as a curator, I do work on the area of collections, and the biggest part of the job really is the cataloging. So my colleagues, my manager would decide, okay, we have a lot of things to catalog, we have a lot of things to study. Let's concentrate, for instance, on the statues, which is what I've done fairly recently. So what you do with cataloging is you really analyze the material aspects of the objects that you are working with, and then you deepen further into the cultural context that produced the object. So very simply, you would study to establish what the artist is, what material is it made of, you would measure the object, and you would record the date, and you would put all of this data into a database that then will allow you to manage the whole collection. And that's very important as a step, because the main task of someone who works in the museum is to preserve our cultural heritage. And to preserve something, you first have to know about it. So you first have to study and record it so that you can know what you have and you know how to preserve it. So I chose this statue as an example. It's a statue of Antinous. And just to give you an idea of the kind of questions that I would ask, I would say, okay, how do I actually know that it's an Antinous, and who was Antinous? So Antinous was the favorite and partner of the Emperor Hadrian. He was from that part of the Roman Empire that is now modern Turkey, from Bithynium. And this story is a beautiful love story, but also a very tragic story, because at the age of only 19, Antinous dies during on a cruise on the Nile, and there's a whole lot of stories and mysteries going around his death. There are theories saying that Hadrian actually sacrificed Antinous to the Egyptian gods for gaining eternal life, and others just that he committed suicide. Others say that it was a complot. But that's just to give you an idea of how many stories you could step upon on a normal day and engage. And actually, it's really I love doing this presentation for Cosetta because it really made me think how much I daily engage with the classics and how easy it is to just get involved in all of these stories and narratives that you encounter. And I just included here a nice book that I'm reading at the moment by this French author, Marguerite Yourcenar, Memoirs of Hadrian. It's a very interesting book, and if you have the time to read it, it's really great hook into classics, I'd say. So then what would I do normally with that statue that I've just showed you before? This is a print from the 18th century that shows you the prototype after which Rossborough statues was made. So this is a statue that was unearthed in Rome, and it belonged to the Pope, and it was displayed in the Belvedere courtyard in Vatican museums. So that's why this kind of statue type is known as the Belvedere Antinous. So there would have been a lot of copies made after this prototype, and they were really popular. But then the next step would be to think about why was a statue of Antinous and why was his story important and relevant to characters that would own these statues in the 18th century. So if you were an artist or if you were a scholar of the antiquity, really Antinous embodied the perfect, classical, and ideal representation of the human male body, like something that is just absolutely beautiful and perfect. And this is just a drawing of a treaty for artists that were learning sculpture and drawing in the 18th century that shows you how much this statue was admired. And this is just a Roman copy after a Greek original that was attributed to the most famous sculptor in Greece called Praxiteles. And then the next step would be to connect the physical copy of Rossborough with the wider context of the mill towns and the collections and their own passion about antiques. So I've just included here a few pieces that are actual Roman pieces that used to be in the collection of the mill towns. And they are currently, so this one on the left, who is a Venus Genetrix, is now in the Getty Museum in Los Angeles. And this one is a cinerary urn that is actually in the National Gallery of Ireland. And that's just, again, to show you like how present was the past of the classical antiquity in 18th century Ireland. And we still have these objects, we still have these legacies, we still have these stories, but have somehow at times been forgotten. And that's where the curation comes into play again, because a big part of a curator's job is to interpret all of this data, as Annie was saying, and to translate them into stories that are interesting and that are accessible by potential visitors. And this is just to show you a way we have to do that nowadays at Rossborough. And it's an app called Smartify, where if you were a tourist and you go around the house, you can just frame the picture or the sculpture, and it gives you the information that you might find interesting. Now, this is just a work in progress, so that's why it's only has like a very small description of what it is. But in future, it will have all the story of who is Antinous, what's his story, and the story of the object itself and of the wider collection of antiquities in a place like Rossborough. And then you would also translate all of this research and analytic work and interpretation work in events and activities that you do with the public. So this, for instance, is a tour that we made with artists. They were doing a course on sculptures, and we just brought them around to show them the statue collection and to just explain everything that I said to you as well. So I'd say, to conclude, I just wanted to mention how we still engage constantly with the material aspect of the classics. And this is a contemporary piece of work. It's a photography by an Irish photographer that is currently on view at the Royal Hibernian Academy. And again, in 2025, where so many options and so many roads are there for an artist to explore, and we still have artists interrogating and playing with the classics, really. And just to reconnect again to what has been said today, possibly the material aspect of the ruins, of the objects, of the texts that we still have is the biggest legacy that we have from the past, but only through the knowledge and the way that we can have to read them and to know them, we can make sure that these are preserved and that they help us to reshape our ideas of the canon of beauty, of how to speak, how to tell a story. So it's really important that we keep engaging with this legacy rather than forgetting about it. And that's it.
So the first question I had for Sean was, in your work environment, how do you think classics makes you a unique, a valuable member of your team? What do you think? What's your extra unique selling point? What do you think you can give? Yeah, come up. Thank you.
Brilliant question. Thank you. So I'd say USP around classics, like going back to the listening piece, like the ability to listen. Like I definitely got that from classics. And then another piece that I believe classics set me up for really well was the ability to engage with different groups and cohorts of people. So I'd say if you go into engineering, and nothing against engineers, but if you go into engineering, you're probably dealing with a lot of very like-minded people who maybe think in a similar fashion, and you could be very similar to the types of people that you're sat beside. And I'd say in classical studies, which is probably evident in the people that have been up here today and the different variety of backgrounds that we have and the variety of occupations that people had with classics on the Maynooth slide earlier on. I think you're sat beside someone from a different group than you normally would be every time you're in a room. And that has been massively beneficial to me in my career because it gave me the exposure to speak to all of these individual types of people that I then was able to leverage and could engage with those different cohorts of people as I moved through my careers. Thank you.